Citizens of football land, welcome back to the Badlands feed. It's Buck the Trend. I'm your host, Dan Essian, coming to you with, of course, a beautiful guest wearing a great hat today, representing the swaggiest team in Major League Baseball, the New York Mets. What's going on, Greg?
What's happening, man? Yeah, the Mets are, at the time of recording this, haven't completely vomited over themselves in like the biggest 10-game stretch of the year. So that's encouraging.
We love to see that.
College football's back,
Yeah.
quotes back this week. And Jets' last preseason game before we actually get to the real football. So it's good times.
Things are getting real, bruh. They're getting
very quickly getting real.
Very
quickly.
It kind of snuck up like really quick this year. It felt like everything was so calm that you just forgot that it was happening.
Which honestly wasn't the worst thing. Was I think just like natural excitement for Jets football to be back, good or bad.
Right.
And then like end of July was like, they report, and I was like, holy hell, like there's no way we're at the end of July yet.
It's
and
wild.
Lo and behold, there we were.
Here we go. Bruh, it's great, man. I'm excited. But let's so we got a couple of topics we're gonna go through. We're gonna preview, of course, Jets Giants. But I wanted to first talk about something that's been top of mind for me with all the reports we've been seeing about Garrett Wilson in camp and how incredible he's looked and how much he's dominated the opposition. And it's not too dissimilar to what we've been seeing from him in these last few. I guess it's been like a year and a half or so. I don't know how to count it in football years, but
Yep.
Like we're not even through training camp for this season yet, but like he's had to deal with a lot of issues with quarterback play. That's why I almost don't even want to count full seasons for whatever the hell he had to go through in those first two. But I think going into this year, you can tell like there's something very different about Garrett Wilson. Before we talk about kind of the Jets trio they have on offense right now, I kind of want to focus on Garrett real quick. Just what have you seen, even just from the little bit of training camp clips from Garrett, and just seeing him physically, that you think maybe this season might be a little bit different than what he's shown previously, which has also been good?
I mean, having just a competent quarterback is going to be massive, right?
Yes.
Like, knock on wood, we hope Rodgers stays healthy for the entire year, but having a guy like Tyrod who has shown, like, I wanted Tyrod back in like 2017 to be their starter, and then they finally get him as a backup, which is good. But just having some sort of like a higher level of competency from a backup quarterback standpoint, and then you have a guy like Aaron who I think I thought we were going to get an FU version of him last year, and I think that's just going to be elevated more this year. And I think Garrett kind of knows. Garrett's learning. Like, I think a lot of it started too with that little quote unquote blow up between Rodgers and Garrett on the sideline, which I think I saw as a good thing because these guys don't know. They haven't been in situations where they're going to need to win games in November and December to playoff football wins. And I think Aaron and guys like Tyron Smith and guys like Morgan Moses and these guys who have been there and done that, like, they just raised the level of focus, even all the way here in August to training camp. And I think you're seeing that with a guy like Garrett, who by all accounts looks like midseason form.
Right.
And him going up against Sauce, when they're practicing by themselves, and then going up against, some of these other teams in joint practices, and him still just eviscerating everybody. Like, to me, that just shows the level of focus that this team has this year.
Yeah.
And I think without all the distractions of the preseason hype, I think there's still hype, but last year was just astronomical. And
Exactly.
This year I think they're in a good spot of like people know the Jets can be really, really good, but they don't have the media spotlight. And, so like Saleh was saying this week of just like, we want to kind of get back to like regular training camp football and push these guys really hard, but not push them too hard to the point where we're opening ourselves up for injuries. And that to me was probably the best quote that I've ever heard from Robert Saleh. But it goes to show that bringing all these veterans in is really starting to show with some of these younger guys, and Garrett's probably at the top of that list.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny because I love that you mentioned the like sideline discussion, the heated discussion, that they were having, because you can tell like there's a few players there on that team who would ever talk to him like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we've heard him in his press conferences in past couple seasons, the way that he talks about the team, the way that he talks about the disgust at losing.
Yep.
Right. And just like, hey, we can't be like this. He'll openly talk about coaches just because he's like, yeah, no, that's not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And the coaches are like, yep. They respect it because they're just like, yeah, hey, what am I going to say?
Yeah.
Like, he's that guy. And it's funny because I honestly, I didn't think coming in that he would be that type of leader,
mm-hmm.
right? But he really just kind of fit his way into that. And you can tell all players around him, not only are they marveling at how good he is, you can tell from like Braylon Allen's tweet about just like, dude, this is the best football player I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of his teammates are just like, bro, I don't understand what he's doing on the field. But you can tell like he's naturally putting himself in that like leadership position of just like, no, I love this game and I need to win. And like him making sure he's on the same page with Aaron Rodgers before the season even starts, instead of waiting until like week 8 to be like, actually, I wholeheartedly don't agree with what's happening on this play,
mm-hmm.
And then it being like a weird thing. He's getting all that out of the way early, and then now all of a sudden it's just like, oh yeah, they look like they've been playing together for 30 years.
Yeah. There's a level of like not effing around this year, which is like subtle and not like we're so focused on blah, 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 blah. Like they're still having fun because it's still football. Right. But you can tell like the level of, we're not here to F around. Like we're here to win and we're here to go to the Super Bowl. It's like, there's like a tinge of that. And it's very good. Because if they were telling us the entire time, right, all off season, all this stuff, it'd be like, all right, like just go do it on the field. Right. But it's been relatively low key, like as far as media stuff. And players are kind of just like doing their own thing. But you can tell on the field, like when when the ball is snapped, it's like, all right, it's time to lock in. And everyone seems to be following suit, which is good.
Exactly. And for all the culture conversations that we've had for the last like 15, 20 years, good grief, man. Who knew it was so simple?
Yeah. Getting a bunch of vets in who are not like, just, it's crazy. Like I think the Rodgers thing is, from him being around, like there's a level of accountability now. Like he's won a Super Bowl. He knows what it takes. Like and he knows he was brought in here to do that. So he's not going to be one of those guys that's like, oh, I'm afraid to clash with, the coach or the offensive coordinator or this player, that player. Like he's, at some point he's got to be like, guys, like I'm here to win. If you want to win, cool. If you don't, leave.
Exactly.
So like him having a level of accountability, obviously you'd love to see that from the top down. And I think it's trickling into Saleh a little bit, but for a guy like Aaron on the field and the position that he plays, for him to hold people accountable, whether that's Garrett Wilson, the best player on the offense, or whether that's, Tippmann, who's missing snaps, like everyone's held accountable to the same standard. And I think that's great.
Absolutely. And real quick, before we move on, it reminded me of there's obviously a million of these clips, but watching Devontae Adams on the Netflix receiver series and seeing like the teammates talk about him, how they're like, yeah, I just don't want to like let him down. And so like, it's the exact same thing.
Yep.
When you kind of build that up in the locker room, your team is just like, oh yeah, nah, don't mess with that guy.
Yeah.
he really wants to win. Like I can't not do this. I can't not be my best.
Yep.
And so, I want to talk about the trio. So Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, quarterback, running back, wide receiver. I have to say, I know we haven't played a game yet now in this season, but based on what I've seen from Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson past seasons, how many better quarterback, running back, wide receiver trios are there in the NFL?
Oof. So I think it's tough, right? Because you have Purdy, you have CMC, and then, I'll throw Debo in there for the sake of the argument. Right. It's like, I think CMC and Breece are, which is wild to say, are like on the same same level.
It's close.
Garrett and Debo. I love Garrett, but like I guess I have to give it to Debo, but I think a lot of that is because of Garrett just doesn't have good quarterbacks. So like I haven't seen the true level of Garrett Wilson that I think we all know he can be, which is crazy because he's had 2,000-yard seasons with like 17 quarterbacks play in the last 2 years. So like, I don't think we've even reached like even a quarter of the ceiling of Garrett Wilson. But for argument's sake, right now, and then it's Aaron over Purdy. But I think once you start going down the list, like it's like okay, they might have better this position, but the Jets overall, I think if you're looking at it strictly as trios, I think you can make the case that they have the best trio in the NFL.
I was scared by like just going through the rest of teams. I was like, oh, like I'm actually surprised that like I haven't heard like this argument, I suppose, earlier in the offseason, because I'm like, it actually is like it's
kind of crazy.
It's kind of crazy, bruh. Like their teams just don't have like that level of elite at all three positions. It's hard to do, honestly, because especially with the way that it's funny because a lot of teams talk about the devaluement of the running back position, right? But there also just isn't the same level of skill as much as like gameplay is a consideration and like the game style and how you fit into the offense.
Yep,
the skill honestly isn't the same level. Like if you look at like I love the Lions running backs, of course, but like Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery both have specific skill sets that let them do their own individual things in a very unique way.
Yep.
That's the difference between like, and obviously I think that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a star, but like Christian McCaffrey and Breece Hall, they have like a special set of skills.
Yeah.
It's a combination of basically everything. You're not going to wear them down.
Nope.
They can catch the ball out of the backfield. They're faster than everyone else. It's like you're a special player at that position when you can do all those three things. And so, yeah, I think it's a little different. And I think that's why often when I go across the rest of the league, I'm like, yeah, no, it's Breece is better. And then you're starting to do that with Garrett a little bit more. And obviously Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback. So it's a pretty rare trio that the Jets have put together here.
Yeah, like when you look at like the mean of all three players, that's when it's like, yeah, are you taking Patrick Mahomes over Aaron Rodgers? Yes, right. Obviously. Like, but I'm not taking Pacheco over Breece Hall.
Right.
I'm not taking Travis Kelce over Garrett Wilson right now.
Right.
Like, would you take Lamar over Aaron? Probably. You could make the argument, it's close. But I'm probably not taking Mark Andrews over Garrett Wilson.
Nope.
I don't trust a single running back in the Ravens organization to stay healthy. So I don't care who's out there,
right.
And then you go down the list and it's like, Dak and CD, like I'm high on Dak, but like, I don't think he's on Aaron's level. So it's like, yeah, it's when you really start getting into the nitty gritty of it, you're kind of just like, okay, Jets have a better trio than that team. They have a better trio than that team. And then you get down, you're like, wait a minute, they've got a better trio than like 90% of the league. Like, There's no way I did this correctly.
Right, right.
This is wild to say.
It feels like something wrong happened, but yeah, they've really put together something here, man. And I really hope that they get to see at least one full season with these three, because I honestly
let's get to a game. Let's focus on one full game at this point, and then we can work on seasons.
Right. 1 week,
a full drive at least.
One play at a time.
Yeah, that's it.
Let's see.
That's all we can go with.
So okay, we talked about Garrett. We talk a little bit about Breece already and what he does for the offense. We've seen him used as a receiver a little bit in some of these training camp clips, and obviously we're not going to see any of him in preseason. But what do you think? You think the Jets are trying to cook up something, especially with all the running backs that they added?
I am shocked that we're in year 3, and we're just talking about like, oh, can Breece Hall be like can we line him out? Like, yes, please. What are we talking about? Like, yeah, line him up out there. That's his most underutilized skill at this point in this offense, because the offensive coordinator is a dope. But get him in the most advantageous positions that you can. Right?
Absolutely.
Like, throw in Braylon Allen in there and then run Breece out on the outside. Like, they ran a play with 2 running backs on the field last year. Maybe they ran it more. one time, and it was against Buffalo, and they gained like 20-something yards, and then they just never went back to it. And I was like, what are we doing?
It's bizarre.
It's insane. Like, you have a guy like Brees who's got the speed, who's got the agility, the short area quickness. Like, he doesn't need to know the entire route tree at like a Garrett Wilson level.
Right.
But like, you're telling me that guy cannot be utilized out against a linebacker or a safety? Hell, even some slot corners. Like, yeah, I get him out there. Get him the ball any way that you can.
Honestly, the most encouraging thing I've been seeing is not just him, because I forget what, I think it was almost like a corner of the end zone throw of Rodgers to Brees, and he like jumped and high pointed it, and I was like, what?
Yeah. That's our running back, by the way. Looks like a wide receiver.
And he just could have been, like you said, he could have just been working on this whole time. But now it's just this offseason that they're like, let's see what happens here.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he can do the Marshall Faulk stuff.
Oh, so he's actually good at other things besides running the ball. Maybe they won't miscalculate his receiving yards this year.
So, but
run him 45 times in a useless game. So stupid.
So you see him doing all that, and like you said, they add Braylon Allen, they add Isaiah Davis, and it's crazy because they both, even the younger running backs, the rookies, they actually also look good catching the ball.
Got some pop,
and honestly, they got some juice. And so, first of all, obviously the running back coach, we talked about it before at the end of last season, how like, hey, you should probably upgrade here. It seems like they actually really did. Which again, as much as nobody wants to think about position coaches, they really matter, y'all.
Yep.
They really matter. If the defense didn't make that obvious enough, hopefully now with the running backs, we can see.
Yeah.
Position coaches matter, man. But
I on principle, I cannot like Isaiah Davis because of the way that they got him. Just on principle, I cannot like him. After trading a billion times and then trading up to go get a second run, he can be the best running back in the world next year. I just, on principle, cannot like him.
It's such a tough sell. I truly don't get it.
Looks great. Looks awesome. No qualms with the player. The way they acquired him, I will never be able to sign with that.
If let's say hypothetical, Brees Hall is split out wide on 50% of snaps next season, would that make it feel better? Knowing that they actually just wanted to use him as a wide receiver the whole time?
I would be so mad. I would be so upset. I would be so upset, but on the flip side, it's like, okay, I get it. They have Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian. Like, there's no sense in like throwing this out there at this point. So like, I could see it both ways.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, if he's just like really good, and it's like year 3 is just the year that they're like, oh yeah, we decided to use Brees out here. Be like, cool, man. This would have been sick. This would have been sick to help our bad quarterbacks the last 2 years.
Just get a cool 1,000 from
yeah.
And so, okay, another question about the trio, and then we'll talk about the Jets Giants real quick. This is kind of leading into that game, but they're going to have no preseason time together.
Nope.
And obviously, y'all can hear from what we're saying. We're pretty optimistic about their prospects, but with no preseason time together, do you think it's going to affect how efficient they are and how impactful they are early in the season?
I do. I think to what extent? I don't think it's going to be this drastic looking like, 3 weeks in, we're like, what the hell's going on with these guys? I think it is going to take some time. Everything I've seen from practice has been really encouraging. Besides like the one day where it was very clear Aaron was just kind of just like, I don't want to practice today, and just had a bad practice. But everything I've seen, it looks pretty fluid. The offensive line seems to be holding up really, really well and actually imposing themselves on other teams, which is good. So, if they come out sluggish against San Francisco, am I going to be upset? Not really. A team like, then you go to Tennessee, if they're going to come out sluggish, am I going to be upset? Maybe a little bit. But I don't think it's going to be one of these prolonged type of deals.
I got you. Yeah. Yeah, let's hope not. Hopefully, it kind of slots into place here. I know everyone was it's funny because we got like 4 plays, but everyone was so concerned about the slow start last year with Aaron Rodgers. Oh, he always has slow starts. Oh, it's gonna be week 3, and then we get a relax quote, and now we're just like, please, anything, please. So
anything,
we're
anything.
I think we'll be very grateful regardless.
I would I be shocked if they came out if the first half of the San Francisco game were all kind of just like panic tweeting like what the hell is going on? Like, no, I probably wouldn't be shocked if that happens. But like, I don't see that being a prolonged thing.
Right.
I'm mentally preparing myself for just like a very stagnant offense in the first half of the game.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna see it pick up.
Exactly. Let's preview Jets Giants.
Snoopy Bowl.
The Snoopy Bowl. And yeah, they need to bring. Do they still do the trophy? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
Whack.
I think after Rex left, they got rid of it.
Damn. Yeah, that was worth it.
The memories. Was it worth it, Dan? Was it worth throwing Mark Sanchez out in the third quarter of a useless Snoopy Bowl game?
Damn. Poor Mark, man.
That's just awful.
I was so annoyed with him at that age, but honestly, that moment was where it like really changed for me, and I felt terrible for him.
Awful.
I was like, he really didn't deserve that. That was really messed
That
up.
was so weird because we got that weird moment, and then somehow that team went 8-8 with Geno as a rookie. Just like one of the weirdest Jets teams I've seen in a while.
Exactly. Yeah, I didn't. That season could not be explained.
No, they had like big wins too, like the road game against Atlanta. They beat the Saints. I think they beat the Patriots that year too on the Antonio Allen pick six. It was just like that was a Geno perfect game. I think just a bunch of like weird moments that started off with Mark Sanchez being played in the third quarter of a meaningless preseason.
Right. Oh gosh. Yeah, that and the Fitzpatrick season have no explanation.
Just so
whatsoever.
dumb, both of them.
No explanation. So of all the players we're going to see and the players you think will play, who are you most looking forward to making an impact potentially?
It's got to be Will McDonald, right? Like,
hell yeah.
I feel like that's a cop-out answer, but the way that people have talked about him, and I was talking with our close personal friend Connor Rogers about this the other day, about just like the weight thing going in. Like, it just didn't make a lot of sense that like,
no,
why would you put that much weight on for a guy with his skill set? Like, it never made sense to me. And people were making a big, he didn't put the weight on. And then you see guys like Baldinger being like, why would this guy add weight when you have such a lethal spin move? And it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, for a guy that's as twitchy as he is, and like his build and his length just didn't make a lot of sense. And like, yeah, obviously, do you want to have Hassan Reddick in there? Of course. But I think McDonald, like if he actually plays consistent snaps, which I hope he does this year, that'll be huge. Because like he was just played on an inconsistent basis last year.
Yes.
And like, but the plays he was in were just like, he's making shit happen. So like that was encouraging. And it was a lot of like fast get-offs and just being more athletic than people. And it's like, okay, if that's our starting point, sick. We can refine all of the other shit. But like, you can't really teach a fast get-off or, being that bendy or having that sort of length. It's like you can't teach that. So I think the cop-out would be him. But another one I'm interested in is Michael Clemens, because I'm just not seeing it. And I think with the rise of guys like Taylor and having a guy like Tack McKinley come in and actually play like really, really well, I don't know. Like, Clemens is cool. He's a great like social media guy that we can all have fun with. But like when it comes to being on the field, I cannot name a single play that he's made of impact.
It's interesting because he almost like the best model for a backup defensive lineman on the Jets to follow, it as crazy as it would have sounded a few seasons ago, is actually Solomon Thomas. Like, just do your job.
Right. He's not going to give you double-digit sacks.
Right.
He's not going to be this uber athletic guy off the edge. He's just going to quietly do his job. Sure, he's going to get beat a couple times and be in the wrong spots. Literally every NFL player does.
Right.
But you're right. That's a great comparison. That is a great model. I would have never thought of that. that now that I'm thinking of it, that is perfect.
Right. And I feel like Clemens just always gets caught doing too much.
Yeah.
Or like making a play that like, yes, if you were a different like body type, maybe you could have made that play. You're not like, just do what you were expected to do. And it's funny because defensive line responsibility in that defense, you don't really have that much responsibility. But if you're always out of position, like you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, it's just like he's just like that's a great point. He's constantly just not in on plays, and he doesn't have the pursuit speed to play sideline to sideline like we see some of these other guys do. He's not quick off the ball. He doesn't really have a go-to pass rush move. Like I just don't see him winning against some of these tackles, and it's like, okay, you're tough, you're intimidating, all that stuff, but like, can you get a sack? Can we get a fumble? Like, tackle for loss, something? It just doesn't make a lot of sense that, I mean, he's getting good minutes. I'm still in basketball. He's getting a good amount of snaps, too, in this preseason, which leads me to believe of, like, he might not be on the roster come cut time.
Yeah, they're giving him a look and a half for sure this preseason. And so you want to see him stand out more than he has. And, like, he's had good moments, and again, his game is effort and strength, right? And it's what that's how he made an impact in his rookie season was showing in the preseason, like, he has a great motor, he has this, he has that. It's like, great, yeah, that's going to help you stick on a roster, but now you don't want to be known for 15 yards if somebody says something that you don't like, plus being out of position or being not making any plays. That's not, you need to be a plus. And man, as much as like even Leonard Taylor, who, had concerns coming in, he's working his ass off. And you see McGregor, you see Watts, and they're very coachable. Right. And so obviously Tack McKinley, he's a professional. You don't really have a lot of wiggle room here. So it'll be really interesting to see what ends up happening there, because if I'm a coach, why wouldn't I just go with someone who's going to give me a consistent output every down versus someone who you're just like, I have no idea what's going to happen. And
I don't have to worry about a guy, going off the rails and shooting us in the foot with 15-yard penalties.
Exactly. So speaking of some of these guys who are trying to make a spot on the roster, one guy who I think basically has gotten his spot and solidified it, but in a different way than I thought, Stiggers has been incredible on special teams. I thought he was going to make the roster regardless, but if he becomes that main gunner on special teams on punt team, is that opening a roster spot up for maybe an additional defensive lineman or whatever the Jets may figure out how to do?
I think that like in an ideal world, you keep him on as that, and then you can keep two guys of Taylor, McGregor, and Watts. It definitely and it opens the door for getting a lot of these younger guys in, because you're right. Like I thought he was going to make the team as a backup corner in and of itself, but the way he's been playing on special teams, it's just like, okay, like the Jets need to take a long, hard look about like who they want to keep on this roster, because we're not going to see any of these guys that are playing in preseason probably in the regular season as far as like significant roles. So the start of the lineup is pretty much set, and a lot of the backups are too. Right. Some of these bottom of the roster guys, there's a lot of wiggle room, like for the guy we just talked about, Michael Clemens. Like, could McGregor take his spot? Like that's something that I'm looking at, and I'm excited, man, because it's like these dudes are they're all playing well, and it's actually going to be like a camp battle of like, we all kind of have our preferences, and like they might not do anything at all this year, but like it's been a legitimate camp battle for, thankfully, positions other than quarterback and wide receiver.
Exactly.
For the most part.
Right. Everyone's just like pushing themselves up, which is it's exactly what you want. It's exactly what you want. You want competition everywhere. Even returner, we saw, that last game. I know Xavier Gibson he's solidified. He's solidified for sure. But
I would say he's written an erasable pen right now.
Oh, please say more.
Remember that? I just saw a lot, and I'm never going to remember the kid's name from the kick returner.
I got you. Keep going.
But I think with these new kickoff rules, like that dude's shifty. And like I was at the game Saturday, and the play that the kickoff happened right in front of us.
Yeah,
and it was totally just like a holy shit. Like, did he just make that happen?
Yes.
What's his name?
Brandon Codrington.
I knew it was a longer last name.
I knew the Ington.
But yeah, exactly. He brings some real juice to the return game, and with these new kickoff rules, that's how a guy comes in and sticks. Like, you make plays like that, and he did it on a punt return too. That's how you make a name for yourself and stick on a roster. And yeah, I think Gibson's pretty good, but you can't have two kick returners.
I mean, you're right. That's a great point. It's a great point.
We can't. If there's anyone that's licking his chops at this new kickoff rules, it's Boyer. And you put a guy like Gibson and Codrington in there.
Yes.
I feel like the possibilities are endless with those two on kick returns.
I know he's begging for it for sure.
Yeah.
I know, especially because it's funny. Last year with Gibson, I feel like his calling card is almost more as a receiver than a returner because, yeah, he had the big return against the Bills, and he had a couple big returns last season, but he also had a muff punt, and then he actually had spent some time off of special teams for a little while after a bunch of receivers got hurt and post the muff punt. It seemed like they were just trying to cycle some other guys in. And then eventually he got back in there. I do wonder, he's had to deal with some health issues now in this preseason. Yeah, I do wonder what's going to happen there, because if it's more a situation where Judge will like actually just trust him as a receiver and Boyer could do whatever he wants at returner, then yeah Codrington might actually make the roster. It might be a really interesting situation.
Especially because Brownlee is just not it.
The first preseason game gave me a little bit of hope, but it hasn't been anything since then. The drops, it hasn't been great.
No, it's just not it. Like the one preseason catch he had last year was awesome, and it feels like they've just been keeping him on the roster because of that.
It's tough. It's you really like the Jets did what they needed to do, which is give him a look.
Yeah.
And he's had every opportunity, and that's it.
Really not more you can do as an organization than just give the guy a look, and
that's the thing.
Just having no production.
Before I ask you a last question, I just have to give you a depressing comparison really quick.
Oh God.
As much as we've seen from Jason Brownlee, and we know that he's probably not gonna. It might not work out, right?
Yeah.
At least with the Jets right now. Would you say that he's better than Ardarius Stewart and Chad Hansen?
Fuck. Yes. If like gun to my head, like if I have to take one of those three, I'm probably taking Brownlee. It's more of a debate between Brownlee and Hansen, and then like Ardarius Stewart's just no. I'd rather go no receivers than Ardarius Stewart.
What happened that year? How does that?
Guy had 45 cups of coffee. He was just tweaking. That's what happened. He probably like didn't even see who he was drafting. He was just like picking names. He's just so hopped up on caffeine. Like if that came out, I wouldn't be surprised. It's like Mike McHagan like suffered cardiac arrest during the 2013 draft, which is why they drafted.
Push the wrong button.
Yeah, exactly.
It happens.
It's like doing it in a fantasy football draft. He just did it with real life players, and we got the guy who gets 0 catches. Sick.
All right. Well, one last question before we wrap up. Between Peasley and Adrian Martinez, who has been the more entertaining quarterback in your mind?
Peasley. Peasley threw the worst pass I've ever seen in a football game. The pass in the corner to Kuntz was by far the worst pass that I've ever seen. Like he was wide open in the corner, and he almost threw it into the stands.
I felt so bad for Kuntz.
Like wide open. I saw it like where it happened. It was like, opposite corner to the left of me, and I saw how wide open he was because he was like 6'8", and the QB just basically threw it into the stands, and I was like, "What's happening?" And the quarter before, there was a play where Brownlee broke free down the middle, and the defender was like 8 yards behind him, and Peasley looked right at him and then tucked. And I just looked at and Brownlee's just like shaking his head. as he's like running his route, just like, come on, man.
Give them a chance.
Yeah, like for entertainment factor, it's Peasley because that guy is bad.
He's tough though. He won't slide.
He will not slide. He will not. He picked up that long third down run, and that was sick. But he is bad. Just bad.
It's tough. It's tough out there.
I brought my girlfriend to the game Saturday because the Jets were in Charlotte, and it was her first football game ever. And it was just so fitting that the first Jets football game she goes to, there's not a touchdown scored by the Jets. Just so fitting. 5 field goals. 5 field goals. Not a single touchdown.
She learned so much about Austin Seibert.
Yeah. I had she's like, they're not very good. And I had to like break it to her like, yeah, these people probably will not be playing when it comes time to the games counting. She's more of a baseball and hockey girl, so I'll give her that. She's not really into football.
I mean, that didn't help, but hopefully there's will be another opportunity.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like if she's ever like, yeah, now I want to get into football. Like taking her to a game where the Jets kicked 5 field goals and the last touchdown was scored on like a 2-yard run on the last play of the game was not the way to get her in.
Look.
No.
Oh my gosh. Oh. All right, Greg. We're going to have Jets-Giants on Saturday.
That's right.
It's going to be a beautiful game. It's going to be a great way to end the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all are going to see more episodes on the feed this weekend. Of course, you're going to see reactions. And then it's almost season preview guide time. Keep your eyes out for that. My schedule is about to just end. I don't know what's going to happen.
I'm here, man. You need me. Shine the bat signal.
I'm going to get my life together, and we're going to put together the best season preview guide ever created.
Hell yeah.
But y'all have a great weekend.
Oh, and wish Dan a happy birthday, too.
Whoa. Thank you.
Come on. You can't. I couldn't let us get out of here without saying that. If you made it this far, wish Dan a happy birthday.
Exactly. If you're still listening. Have a great weekend, y'all. See you.
See ya.